Hello everyone, welcome to the Ink Storm. My name is Ink. And we are back with another episode of Love, Death and Ranting, the series where I and my special guest discuss a particular Netflix animated anthology, of which we have thoughts about. Say hello.
Hello, I am Ari, also known as Awfulwaful, and I am the specialist person who can clap one-handed. Topical.
Very topical. Yep. You did that to hurt me, didn't you?
Yeah, a little.
So, as implied last episode, today we're talking about Helping Hand, which is the episode which Ari and I probably have the greatest difference of opinion.
We go fight.
Oh yeah, it's going to be good. So yes, this is episode, I want to say episode 12?
Of ours,
I'm not sure. Let me take a look.
12. It is 12. It is 12. I just looked.
Episode 12, yes. As usual, spoiler warnings and
trigger warnings for this one.
Yeah,
episode 11. I know some people get a little freaked out about space. Body horror, not
mutilation.
Yeah, it's not horrifically violent, but it is graphic. And I like this episode a lot, but I would not blame anybody for giving this one a skip if you can't stomach a visceral depiction of someone having to rip their own arm off.
Yep. Alright, yeah. So, yeah. Ari liked this one, I did not. And I don't know how much I can put that down to squeamishness. My levels of squeamishness are weird.
Yeah.
As a interesting bit of trivia about your host, I used to work for a funeral director. I have seen plenty of dead bodies, including one who died in a particularly horrible fashion. So I don't consider myself to be a squeamish individual. With like one or two exceptions. I'm not good with eyes, but that wasn't here.
I was about to say, that's not here. I was actually kind of surprised that this one got to you, considering that, to be honest.
I don't know. I think it was a combination of it's like Love, Death and Robots is a violent series. There is a lot of violence of a lot of kinds, and some stuff can get really quite gory. And it comes in a variety of flavors. You've got Sucker of Souls, which played it for love. You've got werewolves, which not werewolves, shapeshifters, which was more of just kind of gore for the sake of gore, but it played more
gore for the sake of manliness is what it felt like.
Yeah, sure. You've got Sunny's Edge, where it was more just realism. It wasn't focused on. It was just kind of there as part of the action. But I think Helping Hand probably has the. Although it's not, because she's ripping off her arm in space. Everything's frozen. There's no blood. The most that you really see is like a bit of bone and some watching the flesh distort as it shatters.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the most uncompromising violence because it's made really fucking clear that this is absolutely excruciating.
Yeah. Well, it really it forces, because it switches between what she's seeing and her face. We are forced to empathize with her and put ourselves in that situation with her. And I think it's really well done in that fashion. And it's one of the reasons I really like this one.
Yeah, I will certainly give you that. This is a well done episode. It's 10 minutes long. It's kind of mid range as far as length goes. We pretty much only have the one character.
The one character and a voice, basically.
Yeah. And they do a good job of giving us, giving us some characterization and some empathy with someone who talks themselves occasionally, but mostly it's just through visual cues and facial expressions.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, on that note, this is another quote-unquote photorealistic style animated one. There's a little uncanny valley. There were a couple of them where I was like, I'm not sure about that, but it's definitely one of the better ones done in Lovecraft.
Yeah, I think part of that comes from the fact that there are so many close-ups, and it is very focused on her expression and her face for a lot of it. So we get really close in with the animation, and it doesn't always 100% hold up, and it does kind of dip into that even for me. But it's not awful. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
I think they did a really good job, basically, considering especially where the technology is right now.
Yeah. I have no criticisms about execution. My problem is further back with questioning what is the value of this story? At what point are we just watching a story about someone going through as much pain as possible? Just for its own sake.
If it's going through as much pain as possible.
I mean, you get what I mean.
Sure. I'm sorry, I was being sarcastic. And I would argue that those kinds of the kind of stories that this is a survival story, and I like the fact that it's not longer than it is. If it had been much longer, I think it would have completely overrun its time, basically overrun its welcome.
Yeah.
Even the fact that we don't see her catch the thing and get us inside works. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But so I grew up, and I don't know how much I've told you about this actually, but I grew up with my biological father basically handing me stories to read every so often. I'm just, here, this is a classic, read this. And a lot of them were short stories. A lot of them were short story science fiction. And I don't know who wrote most of them at this point. It was half of them he like printed off of the web, you know. And I read a lot of stories like this, but they were about guys. Like, not necessarily this brutal. There's one that I remember very viscerally because I was 17 or something. And I had been learning some about what nuclear fallout had done to Japan after World War II, or actually during and after.
Yeah.
And it was about a dude who worked on the moon. I'm trying to remember all the details, but a guy who worked on the moon who was a tech, and it was like a half military base or something. It was where a lot of nukes were stored. and the general running the base basically like got into his head that he could take over the world or some shit by threatening it with nukes or something like that. And this guy basically calmly decided, okay, if I don't do something, we're all fucked anyway. So I might as well go get myself fucked and save everybody. So he, with his clearance, goes into the hangar with all these nukes and just slowly dismantles all of them, exposing himself to this horrific radiation that slowly destroys him over the course of this. But he doesn't just, like, I don't remember if he actually manages to dismantle all of them, but he dismantles enough of them. He irradiates the shit out of himself and the entire hangar so that it's basically unusable. And the ending of the little short story is him getting like brought back to Earth in like a gigantic lead coffin as a hero. And this is not one of those stories where it's like, oh, somebody did something horrific. No, she was just saving her own life. But like, there was a literal movie about the dude who was like, what the fuck was he doing? Was he rock climbing or was he biking or some shit? Where he slipped and fell and his arm got wedged in a crevice and he couldn't get out and he was stuck there and nobody knew where he was and he had to literally cut his own fucking arm off to get help. They made a whole goddamn movie about him. Like, this is a very similar situation, but it's about a woman and it's not a sexualized situation. When people talk about like Love, Death, and Robots being this thing, I know I'm going over, and I'm sorry, I'm going on a little bit of a rant here. Love, Death, and Robots being this thing about like, oh, adult animation, and it's, you know, it's so cool that we can have animation that's not for kids. And it's like, yeah, not all of it needs to be, actually a lot of it doesn't need to be sexual, amazingly. Not all of it needs to be violent either, to be honest. But you know, it's okay. To me, it's okay if it has a point. And a survival story to me is worth seeing. And maybe that's because how many times I'm going to say this during this? I have survived some shit. Not all of it this visceral. Actually, most of it not this visceral. But seeing a woman depicted as somebody who can survive that situation and her gender not fucking coming into it is nice. I don't think that's how all women should be written, like, as their gender just doesn't matter. But I do think it's nice. It's one of the reasons I like Ripley, you know?
Speaking of which, I was amused by the little reference to Alien at the start.
A little reference to Alien? Did I miss that?
Oh my god, did you not get that? Approaching satellite LV-426?
Oh my god! Did it really say that?
Yeah, that's the very first line of the episode.
Nice. Very nice. I wonder if that's in the original short story.
I don't know.
That's funny.
Yeah. I mean, this is an interesting episode to talk about because I don't necessarily disagree with you about any of that. And what it really comes down to in the end is that we have differing tastes and differing opinions on what is a good story and what is a story I guess where the line sits in terms of what is acceptable, I guess. This is the disadvantage with doing this without scripting and just off the cuff. Occasionally I struggle for words.
It's okay. I mean, you can always edit it. Nobody will know.
Nobody will know. Especially if I can have this bit.
Be a mystery.
Yeah, it's like I said, I have no complaints about the execution of this. I just question at what point does a survival story cross from being a piece of inspirational media and into being an exercise in voyeuristic sadism. Because that was the very visceral sense which I came away from this episode the first time I saw it. And I think I've mellowed on it a little bit with the second viewing, but
I think some of that may be how deeply you empathize with the main character. To be honest, the filmography and things do a really good job of putting us in her shoes effectively, and putting us in her mindset. I can absolutely understand the fact that she saw the fact that she was basically fucked with what she had, or with what she thought she had, and just shut down and was like, okay, this is absolutely a danger that comes with the job, and I knew that, and here it is, and I'm fucked. I'm dead. I'm not going to listen to this guy tell me that he's going to get everybody to come rescue me, because I don't want to fucking hear it. I'm fucking dead. And not really thinking of, oh, wait, maybe I can do something, until you see that you have 2 minutes left, and then that adrenaline hits, and you're just like, oh, shit, I'm going to die. Like, I can completely understand that. I can viscerally empathize with that. I can also empathize with personally working jobs where your working conditions are obviously shoddy, your equipment is obviously shoddy, it's dangerous, it's not your upper levels are not looking out for you by any stretch of the imagination, and even you are cutting corners, some possibly, to make sure that shit gets done the way that you're told to get it done. Like, I have some, like, it was hard to ignore some of the basic shit, the critiques, I guess, of the science of it the second time around. Like, she was only in space with her arm for 15 minutes. Space doesn't transfer heat. There's nothing for it to transfer heat to. Your arm wouldn't freeze. It would not be good, but it would not freeze that quickly. I'm not really sure about how accurate the yeeting my glove and then my arm would actually work. I know that it's not just mass versus mass, it's also velocity, but I don't really know how that works, so I can't really speak to that.
It's been a while since I've gone over the physics of.
Yeah, and you're way more than math person than
I am. Flash freezing in space is actually a thing. And it's not about heat transfer, it's about the pressure change.
Really?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Because I
don't know how accurate that is myself, but I know that.
Okay. I'm going off of, like, like those videos that get put up of, like, oh, this is like some astrophysicist who's like watching some movie and pointing out the flaws kind of thing. Where somebody gets like sucked out an airlock or some shit, and then their frozen body hits the windshield or something, and the guy's just like, yeah, that wouldn't happen. Like, that kind of thing. But maybe you're right. I don't know for sure. But it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% right for it to work for me. And that's okay.
Yeah, no, we're going off on tangent. Well,
yeah. But going back to your original point, is, it's yeah, fuck, what was I saying? The episode does a really good job, cinematography and direction-wise, of getting you to empathize with her. But I can absolutely see why I would have a much easier time empathizing with her and getting something out of this story that you would miss. Not to be like, you've lived a charmed life over here, but, you know, it's... I have a lot more in common. I have a lot more data points in common of my previous experience than you do, even though I've never been a space engineer.
Yeah.
Outside of a video game.
I'm
Scottish. I've never been Scottish.
No, well, I have been 50% Scottish, so you see, I do have some points of connection. Yeah. Again, it's not something which not really something where I can refute any of the points you're making. I just came away with a different sense of this. I think the bottom line with this episode is that I could very easily see people coming away with a lot of different takes on it.
Yeah. Well, that happens a lot of times. This is not a story with anything to say, really. Which actually may be part of the problem that you're having, is this a lot of the media that you enjoy and a lot of the media that you make, in my experience, has either something good to say or has a really interesting world that you can play with.
Yeah, and this just is.
This does not have either. This just is. And I don't know, I don't think necessarily, stories that just are good by inherent worth or anything, but I do tend to enjoy them more than you do.
Mm-hmm.
I can absolutely see why we're coming away with two different views on this. And I think I've said this in other episodes, is that's fine. You can like this episode, you cannot like this episode, and that really is okay. My only concern is when people don't think about stuff. Is when they don't think about the implications of what they're watching, when they don't think about and maybe I've missed something. Maybe somebody can come up in the comments and be like, actually you missed the gratuitous titty shot because you were too distracted by the hand or something. I don't know. And be like, this is absolutely sexualized violence. I don't think it is. But somebody may come up with something and point out something I missed and be like, you didn't think about this, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. I have something new to think about. But just me thinking about this, having seen this twice, I think its existence is worthwhile, much more so than something on the order of 60 to 70% of everything else involved Death and Robots. This deserves the title of adult animation.
Yeah. Thinking about your comment about my fondness for stories and things which have a point. I'm actually reminded of an episode of Deep Space Nine that I watched recently. Spoilers, I'm a massive Trekkie, which...
Did you really rewatch Deep Space Nine again?
I cherry pick episodes every now and again when I just need something to put in the background.
You're such a nerd. I love you.
Bite me.
No, I love you. I think it's wonderful. Go on, tell me about it.
But yes, it's called Nor Battle to the Strong. And it is... In some ways it has a few similarities. It's a war story where the main character, who's not one of the Starfleet officers, he's actually still a kid pretty much. I think he's 17 at the time in universe.
Mm-hmm.
Ends up in the middle of a war zone helping at a hospital. Ends up out in the battlefield trying to recover some equipment, and ends up just running away during a mortar strike just because he gets that scared. And he finds it really difficult to come to terms with abandoning his friend, just running away, and tries to find some way for it to have been the right choice. He finds an injured soldier, and he actually says, if I can save you, if I can bring you back to the hospital, then it would have been worthwhile. Trying to find a narrative when there wasn't one, and the soldier actually says, I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that, right before he dies. So, yeah, perhaps there is something to that. That tragedy and pain doesn't always have a narrative, and that in itself can be quite disturbing.
I mean, it's a little bit different, obviously, but did you watch H-Bomb's video on H.P. Lovecraft?
A couple of times, yeah.
One of the things that he talks about in there is that a lot of people have taken Lovecraft's work and made it into something else. Whereas Lovecraft was this xenophobic piece of shit. A lot of the works based off of his stuff tend to deal with a lot more of the real horrors, I guess, in the universe. And it's kind of coming from my experience, is that, you know, there's a lot of suffering that happens just in everyday life that people don't normally notice or see or have to go through. Or I say people. There's a large portion of the population, I guess, that, you know, does suffer in their childhood, in their young adulthood, in their older life, whatever. But nobody's experience is necessarily the same, and nobody's degree is necessarily the same. And there's a lot of people I love who will fully understand the shit that I've gone through. And the fact that I have a very intimate relationship with the knowledge that there isn't a point. There is no point to a lot of the horror and suffering that people will inflict on each other. There's no story. There's not necessarily any catharsis. There's no catharsis to gain. There's no narrative. This isn't a movie or a book where we can always get vengeance on the person who did us wrong, or that there necessarily is a person who did us wrong. Silence, demon. Sorry, my phone just buzzed. And you either have to come to terms with that, or you fucking lose your goddamn mind. And coming back to this episode, is there's, you know, it was just a bolt out of the blue. Like, it was just space debris. Space debris happens all the fucking time. It's everywhere. And she wasn't rigged up to the thing to keep her anchored in case of an emergency, which is another problem, which I don't know if it was just addressed or if it was just, like, it went during the writing of this, or if it was ignored. It doesn't matter. It was just a series of unfortunate events that she then found herself in the middle of, and there's no purpose to it. It didn't make her a better person. It didn't change necessarily her outlook on life that we got to see. it's definitely going to affect her life because she lost her fucking arm. But, there's nothing necessarily to be gained out of it. There's nothing to be lost either. It just is.
Yep.
And that is really, I have found that is really difficult for a lot of people to accept. And I don't blame them. I do not blame people, and I don't feel like I'm enlightened because I have. I did not want this knowledge. It was just something that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
have you acquired a kitten?
Yes, she's looking for attention.
As kitties do.
Yeah, and it's not. I didn't watch this. I actually didn't feel. I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I'll make this like my last point. I can absolutely understand why you would look at this and feel like this is like somebody sadistically getting, enjoyment out of watching this. I didn't feel that throughout the entire thing, first or second viewing. It could be a little hard to watch because watching somebody rip their own fucking arm off is extreme. But I did not feel any pleasure from watching this, I guess, in the sense of I didn't have any pleasure watching what she went through.
I'm sure, but we didn't derive any pleasure from watching The Witness either, so...
Well, God, let's not dig that shit up again. But I did derive pleasure from the fact of its existence and from the fact that her actions had meaningful impact. She saved herself. A lot of people do not have that option. A lot of people are incapable for one reason themselves when they get into shit. And it doesn't matter if it's physical or if it's mental or if it's emotional. A lot of people can't do that. And she could. And that is fulfilling in its own way to me.
Yeah.
And I will stop rambling now.
Yeah, I think that we have now actually set a record. Most of our episodes are roughly twice as long as the thing they're talking about. This one is coming up, it's actually over 3 times as long at this point.
Oh jeez. Well, you can edit it down like we talked about before and keep it secret, keep it safe. Nobody has to know. Just don't edit out any of my arguments, because those are the important ones.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that's actually going to remove any time then.
Wow! Divorce!
I love you. Alright, so yeah, bottom line. This is a technically very good episode. I say that in the sense of it is technically proficient. It is well shot. It is well characterized. It is very beautiful. And the content is divisive and thought-provoking. What thoughts you come away with, well, that's really up to you. But I think the fact that is something that I can say about Helping Hand is an accolade in itself, especially compared to most of Love, Death and Robots.
Yeah.
Alright, well, next episode, there'll be fish.
The fish episode.
Another one which
a story with no point.
Yeah, another one which I completely forgot existed until I was going through the list.
Yeah, well.
So, yes. That's all to look forward to next time. So until then, stay safe, folks.
Bye!